predefined time. And take your place on one of the tables. It doesn't matter where. I don't know if anyone has already made a World Cafe, but we will change around the table, so it doesn't matter where you sit. Okay, so again, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of BFN, that is the German Federal Agency for Nature Conservation, which I'm the president of, and of our partners, that is UN, TEEB, and WCMC, that is the Helmholtz Center for Environmental Research, that is GIZ, the German Development Cooperation, and our German Ministry for Environment. I would like kindly to welcome you to this workshop here on policy tools and instruments related to TEEB. Well, TEEB, the economics of ecosystems and biodiversity, the international TEEB study you probably all know, that has been launched in Nagoya in October 2 years ago, 2010, has substantially improved awareness for the need to maintain and to restore biodiversity and ecosystems by valuing their services first at a global and international scale. And this study has also inspired TEEB-related initiatives in many countries across the world. For instance, Germany has started a national TEEB study this year, which is mainly performed by UFZ, by Helmholtz Center for Environmental Research, and which is coordinated by our agency. We also cooperate in this respect with other countries, especially with China and Russia, to facilitate European and international coordination on TEEB-related activities. And let's say, for instance, in Europe, it's already quite many countries who have also launched TEEB-related studies or TEEB-like studies on ecosystem services, like the United Kingdom, for instance, the Czech Republic, Austria, and others. This cooperation is very important for us and also contributes to advance our efforts in Germany. Well, it would be misleading to think that TEEB studies are able to value or to take the value of ecosystems or of species themselves. That would be really misleading. But they are designed, or they might picture what happens if ecosystems and their values change, if they are deteriorated or improved. And they thus reflect the status of biodiversity and ecosystems. And they can provide indications on the values, that means especially economic values, but not only. For instance, we in Germany, we take great considerations that we not only look at economic values, but also at other values. But anyway, such TEEB studies, they provide indications on these values and services provided and supplied by ecosystems, and they may offer a basis to develop scenarios and recommendations for various stakeholder groups. Please come in and take a place. There's still some seats left. Well, due to stakeholder involvement and communication strategies, TEEB studies directly link to action. For the implementation of TEEB findings and recommendations, applicable tools and instruments are needed in a number of fields. With your help this evening, using a World Cafe format, we would like to identify and discuss 4 sets of potential tools and instruments that can be applied in the TEEB context. They are represented by these 4 tables, and within this event we will change within the different tables. I would briefly like to mention the topics. They are related to international cooperation and coordination. Second, to economic incentives, that may be subsidies, taxes, PES, payment for ecosystem services, and so on. Third is capturing evidence, like monitoring, assessment, valuation, database, and so on. And last but not least is communication and information. The aim of our efforts should be to provide encouragement for further TEEB implementation and ultimately to contribute to the safeguard of biodiversity and ecosystem. Well, I wish all of you a fruitful discussion now for this evening, and I would like to hand over to Bettina Henne-Dunkhorst, who is the head of our international department in our German Federal Agency for Nature Conservation, and who will now moderate this evening. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will try to steer you through this evening. And first of all, let me say that we are very glad that you found that we have you here tonight. There are a lot of other interesting events, but so thank you very much for coming. The idea for this event is to make use of your knowledge and experience in the World Cafe setting, and to discuss policy and supporting tools and instruments that could be used in the context of TEEB. And Beate Jessel has identified or mentioned a number of areas that we have identified and we think that are worth to discuss in terms of tools and instruments for TEEB. You might be surprised to see areas identified related to communication or information or international cooperation, because TEEB is usually associated with economic valuation. But the TEEB study and the TEEB process shows that communication, information are really crucial to forward the process. If you look at the reports, at numerous places it is said that stakeholder processes are very important. In terms of international cooperation, conventions can be utilized in the TEEB context. So we thought we should use this opportunity to go beyond economic valuation and discuss other tools and instruments that could be used in future in various TEEB processes that are now emerging in different countries. Before we embark on the World Cafe setting, we have 3 colleagues who volunteered to give us some case studies and to share their experience related to TEEB instruments with us. And they are Milika Sobi from Fiji. She's working for IUCN Oceania. We've got me, Bruton Adams, working for TNC in Micronesia, and Gerard Camora, working on the Seychelles for the Island Conservation Society. And they will give us their experience with TEEB-related tools and instruments. Actually, Milika will give us a little introduction to the PS project, and May will talk about international cooperation, the importance of international cooperation in her context. Project context, and Gerard will focus on monitoring database issues. And the idea is to get reality in our heads before we are moving to the tables, and please keep their presentations in mind when you are discussing. We won't have questions after their presentations, but nevertheless the issues could be taken up at the tables. You might ask your question, why islands? Well, actually, this is a nice story. We were asked, like many other event organizers, by IUCN to join, and we were actually asked to join with Gerard, who had proposed a workshop. And after discussing a little while, we found it's actually a good idea from IUCN, because islands cover so many ecosystems, and from mountains to coastlines, so they could serve as a really good example for what we are talking later in the World Cafe. So I'd now like to hand over to Milika to give us a short introduction of her project. Somebody will help us, I think. Excuse me, from the technicians. Could you put on the presentation here? Or wherever you do it, the first presentation. two of you? No. Yeah. We loaded the. Yes. So there should be 4 presentations. Yes.
So just need to check if this is.
Yes. Okay, please. Yes. Yes, they are organizing. There seemed to have been a misunderstanding concerning the technique. Milika could, I think, already start.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Do I use the mic? Yep, I can use the microphone. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will keep my case study to 5 minutes because that's what I've been instructed to do. The example that I'm giving is of a pest system that's worked well in Fiji. It's in a Ramsar site, the first and only Ramsar site that we have in the country. And it is the Upper Navua River Gorge. Once the slides are able to be shown, I'll show you a slide of the area. The site has a lot of unique features. Apart from the geology of the site, being a gorge, it has some unique flora and fauna. Endemicity is high. The villages that live along the river, in that catchment area, have hardwood forests in the area. There are some very special birds and plants that are found there. One in particular is a family of plants that only has 1 species and is thought to be the ancestor of most flowering plants. So that's found in this Upper Navua River Gorge area. Apart from that, ecosystem services provided to the inhabitants of the area include important subsistence fisheries, medicinal plants. They have a lot of culturally significant sites in the area. So overall, both biologically and socially, culturally, it's a very important site to the inhabitants. Now, for those of you that aren't aware, Fiji, as well as the rest of Melanesia, much of the land is native land. It's owned by native landowners. In Fiji, it's about 84% of the land. So the Upper Navua River Gorge, or this Ramsar site, is actually owned by traditional landowners. But then a lease was granted in the year 2000 to an ecotourism venture called Rivers Fiji, who took out, or were given, a 25-year lease for their tourist activities. They take tourists whitewater rafting in the gorge. So the lease that they were granted allowed them management of the waterway, 24 kilometers of the river, as well as 200 meters on either side of the bank. Now, as I mentioned, they've got hardwood forests in this area. So adjacent to the area that's being leased by Rivers Fiji are areas that have been leased to logging companies. And so there's a great incentive for landowners to actually just ditch the conservation area concept and just go with logging. But no, they granted this 25-year lease to Rivers Fiji, who now run quite a successful business in taking tourists on whitewater rafting in this area. So how do the villagers benefit from this? Should I stop or should I wait and show the first slide, Bettina? Since everything's happening now.
4 minutes. Maybe you will see the slides afterwards.
That's fine. So the Ramsar site was declared in 2007. Rivers Fiji played a big role in getting this site nominated as Fiji's first Ramsar site, and as I mentioned, only Ramsar site. So how do the villagers benefit from this? Well, in several ways. Firstly, for every tourist that goes up the river gorge, the villagers get 10% of the fee that tourists pay. I'm not sure which one is the... Which one is mine? I don't know.
스위치 다른 것 같은데? 화면이가 아니고 마우스가 아니고 지금. 여기서는 움직이고 아까 그거 하면 안 움직여요. 이걸 할게요. So can you read it?
No, that's not. Then this is okay. Yeah.
So we can
Yes, please.
double check.
I'm sorry for this. By the time the Congress is over, we will know how to operate this, I'm sure.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you. What, just click on that? Okay.
If you want to go before, sure.
Thank you. All right, thanks. So this is just a photograph of the area that I've been talking about, the Upper Navajo Conservation Area, and some of the features that I've already highlighted, but it shows you the high endemicity.
Excuse me, there's probably.
What I should have also mentioned is that it has the largest standing stock of an endemic sago palm that's critically endangered, and some of the other threatened species that exist in the area, including 2 endemic freshwater fishes. So biologically it's very diverse, but some of these species are obviously also very threatened. Now he assures me that it should, but I can't see anything on my screen but you.
Excuse me. Still doesn't move. Next slide.
Okay. Well, why am I not seeing anything on this? Anyway, okay. So, as I mentioned, Rivers Fiji manages this for the landowners, and for every tourist they take up there, 10% of the fee goes to the landowners, and the landowners aren't individuals. The Fijian society is that we have landowning clans. So 9 landowning clans own areas around this conservation area, and they're listed on the right. So from 2001 to 2012, the revenue earned by these landowners has gradually increased. There also, the deal that was struck between Rivers Fiji and the landowners was that all the employees of this ecotourism company are from the landowning clans. So the employees are made up of villagers from these 9 clans. They also provide training for these villagers in terms of being guides, so they train them in identifying the different flora and fauna. They are employed as porters. They're employed to maintain the trails that where the vehicles park and where the kayaks are taken down to the river. So the employment in those 3 different areas. The other big advantage is that the company actually maintains the road going up from the highway up into the highlands. So the roads that the villagers use are maintained by the company. They also give goodwill contributions. Fijians, like all the other islanders, we have a lot of traditional obligations, things that require financial contributions. And so Rivers Fiji often gives contributions to these landowners for whatever events happening in the village. Another benefit is that Rivers Fiji, it's an American-owned company, and they often fly in medical teams that provide medical services to these villages in the inner parts of the island. There are some issues, however. As I mentioned, the adjacent forest area is being logged, and so there's a threat of logging encroaching into the conservation area, because the conservation area actually hasn't been properly demarcated. It hasn't been surveyed and pegged off properly because of the costs involved. So logging is beginning to encroach into the conservation area. Villagers are beginning to make more and more demands on the company, and government agencies don't intervene at all in keeping it as an intact conservation area. The responsibility is lying solely with Rivers Fiji. So to address this issue, Rivers Fiji have embarked on an awareness-raising campaign to the future landowners, the future decision makers in these villages. So what they've done is they've taken the children of the landowners on what the tourists enjoy, and have shown the children why their site is so special, in the hopes that in the future these children will help to maintain the upper Navo River Gorge as a pristine conservation area. And so those really are my 3 slides to show you, 1, what's so special about the area, 2, the fact that villages have been benefiting in terms of revenue earned. Okay, and it's increased over the years, but there's no doubting that there's greater threat from logging that's happening in the adjacent area and keeping this particular area as pristine as it is at the moment. So that is the end of my little case study of pests in Fiji. Thank you.
Help us with the next, loading the next presentation. Yes. We now have me, Butch and Adams.
So you are chairman.
Yeah.
So you don't know.